Pokémon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire is a bunch of unoriginal garbage games. Both of these titles is absolute feces. Oh, Pokémon, what has happened to this once profitable series? Pokémon, these have gotta be the worst Pokémon games ever released, and for incredibly good reasons. We're gonna get straight to it. This is another episode of TruGheymer Reviews, and you know, when it comes to originality in video games, when it comes to having fresh new ideas, the company Nintendo would have to be at the very bottom of the ladder of the frickin' charts, because these guys have become the biggest hacks in gaming history. Even worse than some of the, you know, some games will come out every single year and annual releases and, you know, copy and paste franchises. But let me tell you something right now. Over just the course of a little over a year, 1 year, they've already released 4, count them, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Pokemon games. From 2013, last year, to this year in late 2014. I mean, last year it was what? Pokemon X and Y, and then this year, Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which are basically just, I mean, unless you've been living under a frickin' rock or you're a complete noob when it comes to video games, Ruby and Sapphire, I'm sorry, but these games came out 12 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, on the Game Boy Advance. These are old GBA games. I distinctly still remembering, I was back in high school in 2003. Alright, when Ruby and Sapphire, the original Ruby and Sapphire came out in 2003, and then, you know, I remember buying that, and I was in the 10th grade. I was in grade 10 in high school. And, you know, because Pokemon came out, I wasn't really a fan of Pokemon at that point, but some of my other friends actually had, you know, Ruby and Sapphire. They actually had it, and so it kind of made me want to kind of buy it again because, you know, I mean, I kind of missed the gameplay itself. That's the thing with Pokemon. That's the thing with Pokemon. The reason why people, you know, to this day, I'll still meet people in their 20s, people that grew up in the 90s that will play Pokemon. They'll buy new Pokemon games because it's about the gameplay. It's not about, you know, the crappy characters or the garbage design or, you know, the formulaic trash. Because it is all of that. It's absolute trash. It's kiddified garbage. Except it's the gameplay. That's the main thing that makes Pokemon it's the main draw. It's the reason why people keep going back to it, is because of that gameplay of having like 1,000 characters, 1,000 monsters that you can train in this ridiculous world, and then so you're always building up, and so you have like this crew of 6 characters running through the, you know, everybody else, you know, running through all the Pokemon and all the enemies, and beating the gym leaders and beating the Elite Four, and ultimately conquering the game. That's the main appeal. But the fact of the matter is that this is the same old tired garbage. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I can barely even pronounce it because, hey, look, it's Ruby and Sapphire. It's Ruby and Sapphire. These games came out 11, 12 years ago. It's nothing new. And that's the, you know, that's the sad. These are the depths of Nintendo. You know, this is the unoriginal, you know, business practices that Nintendo has succumbed to. This is the only thing that they can do because they're a bunch of hacks. They have unoriginal ideas, and all they can do is rehash the same games over and over again. It's the same garbage released every time. What is it going to be in 10 years from now? I guarantee you, in 10, 11 years, in what, 2024, 2025, when the next generation of Nintendo handhelds is out, and it's a brand new set of systems for Nintendo, they're going to put out frickin' Pokemon X and Y. X and Y is going to be rehashed in some updated bullcrap remake type of thing. Because that's all Nintendo does, is rehash the same formula. Okay, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD. Wind Waker HD. If it's not, you know, bringing back an old game, they just bring back the same franchises. They always have to, you know, it's always the same crap. It's always the same Mario Kart and Smash Bros. and Pikmin. It's always the same thing with this ridiculously pathetic company. And that's the sad part. That really is so lame and pathetic. Let's talk about Alpha Sapphire. Let's talk about Alpha Sapphire. It does say Alpha on it. That, you know, we'll talk about that first. Okay, so Metro Game Central gave it a 70 on Metacritic score. They said the problem being Ruby and Sapphire were never that great, and this is still not as good as the recent X and Y. Well, I mean, that's, yeah, I almost forgot that Ruby and, you know, yeah, the third generation, Ruby and Sapphire, was pretty bad. That was a pile of absolute kangaroo bullcrap, alright? I mean, Ruby and Sapphire stunk! They had to be the worst Pokemon games when they came out, and that, I mean, after Ruby and Sapphire came out, I stopped playing Pokemon for like 10 years. You know, I stopped buying Pokemon games for, you know, for like 9-10 years after Ruby and Sapphire, because it wasn't very good. Yeah, it was very, very underwhelming bullcrap. You know, it wasn't really that great. The gameplay stunk. The character designs, the Pokemon designs were horrible with Ruby and Sapphire. All the terrible character designs they added, all the horrible Pokemon they added. They weren't original, you know, Wingull and all that garbage, and, you know, very unoriginal, very uncreative. Minoon and Plusle and, you know, Pikachu ripoffs, and all they did was basically rehash the same Pokemon designs that they've had for years, since the since Gen 1, the first generation. It's pathetic. This game is a waste, an absolute waste. Let's see what else. IGN's Cali Plague also praised the game's 3D reinvention of Hoenn and online functionality, but Plague was also critical of the overabundance of HMs needed to play the game, as well as the perceived imbalance favoring water-type Pokemon. She played the Alpha Sapphire version, which features Team Aqua as the villains. Yeah, that's right, yeah, the Team Rocket ripoffs. The Team Rocket they always gotta have some sort of team villain, you know, a team crew, you know, Team Aqua, Team Magma, and the reliance on water-based routes. She remarked that while the dive feature was novel in the original release, it had since become tedious. Oh yeah, that stupid, worthless dive function. I mean, it sucked back then. The only good thing about that was the music. That's the only thing I remotely liked about Dive. Dive stunk! It was worthless. The music was cool, you know. And that was the only thing I liked about the stupid Dive, because Dive, everything was way too dark, it was way too tedious. It's basically just a gimmick, and that's the problem. Again, that's another huge problem in Pokemon, especially with Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, is the overuse of HMs, the hidden machines, man. The hidden machines is garbage, absolutely a waste of space in your party. It wastes your move slot, a waste of moves, a waste of, you know, it's bad enough that your Pokemon can only have 4 moves. Okay, they only have 4 maneuvers. They only have 4 moves every Pokemon, so really, you have a very limited move set. But, on the other hand, you're forced to basically use these stupid hidden machines, which is basically the HM. A hidden machine is basically a special move in Pokemon, where you can use it in the outside world. For example, you can, you know, climb mountains, you can dig underground, but you have to use it it takes up a valuable slot in your Pokemon moveset, in your freaking list of moves. It takes up a valuable slot, and it wastes space because most of the time, most of these HMs are terrible. They stunk. They are garbage. They are useless. They're not that strong. Their power base level attack is not strong. The only good one is Surf. You know, Surf is the only one. It's like level 95 or something like that. And that's the only thing worth having, so everybody gets to have Surf. And the rest of it is absolutely worthless. There's much more powerful moves you can use. So hidden machines are an absolute waste of space. They suck. And the game forcing you to use them, and so you're basically forced to have, you know, you gotta capture jobber Pokemon, basically, just disposable Pokemon. You gotta have these crappy Pokemon, like they you know, HM nubs. Basically, you basically use them as HM slaves. An HM slave is basically a Pokemon that has nothing but HM moves, or they have the valuable, you know. So let's say you need to use Fly. You need Fly in order to fly from this city to the other city. It makes transportation a lot better. That you gotta use Fly, so you need a bird Pokemon or a flying Pokemon that can have it. So you capture a Pidgey or a Wingull or some crap like that. So you're using a Wingull. Wingull sucks. It's a weak Pokemon, but you need it because it's got frickin' Fly. So you kind of have to keep it in your party. So the whole thing is just a waste of time. It's a waste of space. It's very tedious to have HMs. The 3D version, the 3D interpretation of Hoenn is a complete gimmick. It's a complete gimmick. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It doesn't even need a 3D type of gimmick. It doesn't even need that. And then you have the online functionality. Wow. Haven't seen that before. Oh, online has been around since the frickin' 80s, 90s. I mean, so online is not really new. It's not really fresh. All they do is rehash the same games. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I mean, you gotta be a complete Nintendiot. A complete, pathetic Nintendiot to still be playing this Pokemon trash, this heaping pile of Pokemon droppings. I mean, my goodness, what's the point? What's the point of always having these games? It's the same game, it's the same story, it's the same stupid game. You gotta be a pathetic loser to keep going back to Pokemon. I mean, it baffles the mind. Rehashing the same old games. Yeah, so here's an idea. Hey Rockstar, why don't you rehash Vice City and San Andreas from 10, 12 years ago and call that a brand new game? Why don't everybody start doing that? I mean, you might as well just release games that came out 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That's Nintendo's thing. Imagine if, my God, imagine if every company started doing that. Every single developer, every publisher, instead of putting out brand new IPs and brand new games, they rehash games that came out 10 plus years ago. 10, 11 years ago. I mean, Nintendo's doing it, so why not everybody else? Nintendo does it all the time. And people lap it up. These Nintendiots buy into it. How pathetic is that? Oh my God. Well, that's all I got. This is another episode of TruGheymer Reviews. I want to thank everybody who watched this vid. I mean, this is nothing but the absolute TruGheymer, straight edge, right on the money analysis right here. A review for all the ages. And, just stop buying this poker crap. I mean, how old are you? How old are you? I can understand if you're 10 years old. If you're 10 years old, 11 years old, and then you play Pokemon, okay, it's new to you. It's new if you're a little kid. But if you're in your 20s or something, or even if you're remotely close to mature age, and you've played through Ruby and Sapphire in the past, and you play the older games, this has been an incredibly depressing year. This has been a terrible year. 2014 is the year of hack remakes, re-release, garbage ports, and crappy, disappointing titles of the current gen. This is embarrassing. I grew up with the original Ruby and Sapphire, and that's the only version that you need to check out if you want to play Ruby and Sapphire. That's a true Pokemon fan. A true Pokemon fan is somebody that actually played Ruby and Sapphire. You pathetic Nintendians. The TruGheymer Reviews is brought to you by The Review Space. For more videos, check out youtube.com/TheReviewSpace. Thanks for watching. Until next time.